Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Hold on just a second. Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians and guests. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Gainesville. Today is August 10th, and we are delighted to have everyone here with us, both in person and on Zoom. Guests and visiting Rotarians virtually on Zoom, please identify yourself in the chat. If you're watching on YouTube, please register your participation by sending an email to info@rotarygainesville.org. At this time, we're going to call Pete up here to do our song and pledge.
I noticed she didn't mention the joke, but see if I can get this. Well, I'm going to take it out. That's a joke. Here we go. How's that? Well, fellow Rotarians, today is National S'mores Day. Congratulations. I don't know if the s'mores made it to your table. And believe it or not, there is not a single joke about s'mores anywhere on the internet that I could find. So bear with me. This is going to be a Jeopardy format. So how many people remember Lawrence Welk? You raise your hand if you are of a certain age. Okay, all right. So what are the names of Lawrence Welk's 3 daughters? Press the buzzer. Anna 1, Anna 2, Anna 3. Would you join me in singing God Bless America? God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Please join me in pledging allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Pete. At this time, Kevin Thorpe is going to provide our invocation. Kevin?
May we pray. Lord, we are greatly honored by this new day that you have given us. Thank you for allowing our school year to restart safely. Protect our children, protect our administrators, protect our leadership. We thank you for this club and every mission that you have assigned to us. We thank you for today's speaker and presentation. Help us to listen intently, to take in good information and take it back to our community. It is for your sake and for your glory we pray. Amen.
Thank you very much, Kevin. At this time, we'd like to have introduction of guests, of members, and any other visiting Rotarians.
Hello, I'm David Nicholson. I have 2 guests. One is Jamie Kernick, and she's the chief inspector for the city police department, and she's terrific. The other one is Linda Stump Kernick, and she's the chief of police for the University of Florida. She's had 20 years. She has 18 years, but she had tons of years previously at Purdue University in Indiana as chief.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie Bales, and this is my husband, my guest, Ty Bales. He is in new home sales for D.R. Horton in Newberry, and he's joining us today. Thank you.
Welcome. All right. Well, we welcome everyone. At this time, we have a couple of announcements by Rotarians. Greg Young, I think you have a couple of announcements.
Good afternoon. So on behalf of TJ Pache and Colleen Keene, neither one could be here today, I'm announcing the Bread of the Mighty is hosting us and other social organizations, service organizations in the community for I think they're stuffing boxes again, which was something we did not too long ago. And it was a lot of fun. It's a very fast-paced event, so the time flies and you make good connections with people and other groups in the community. That's this Saturday at the Bread of the Mighty Food Bank. As many of you know where that is. There's also some information in the bulletin. It's from 10 to 11:30. So the other announcement I have is about the Rotary Leadership Institute. That's going to be Saturday, August 28th in Daytona, or it's actually in Flagler, Palm Coast. I think it's the Daytona State College. They hold it on the campus there. It's a nice facility. RLI, as many of you know that have been there, a number of you have been to those teachings and learnings and sharings, is that it's an opportunity to learn more about Rotary, about its history, about what it stands for, and in order to get the most out of your Rotary experience, being a Rotarian, I would highly recommend you attend those. I've learned so much there and met some good friends in the district. It's a great opportunity to network in the district as well. So at this point, it's supposed to be a live in-person event. They're still talking about that. So I'll let you know if that changes to a virtual event or some such thing. Maybe they'll do a hybrid, I'm not sure. But anyway, that's the fee for that you pay, and the club will reimburse the first five members that sign up for that. That's what we have in our budget. And so that's what we can do. So if you sign up early, you can have your RLI fees paid for. So if you have any questions, contact me, and there should also be some information in the bulletin as well. So thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Greg. Jenny, you're going to tell us about, I'll let you.
So as Kevin mentioned, the kids started back at school today. Dry undies are like the best thing in the world, right? No one wants to sit with a slightly damp bottom for whatever reason. And so we are raising money and collecting underwear, all sizes, little bottoms, big bottoms. Everyone is affected. People that are older can have, teenagers can have accidents just the same as a 5-year-old. So I sent out an email last week. There were links you could buy directly from Wally World, Target, Amazon. You could send us money, or you can deliver them to the meeting next week, or you can drop them off at my office. We take everything. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jenny and Helen and everyone that's working on this project. Okay, at this time, I'm going to turn the program over and give the floor to our president, David Gracie.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's wonderful once again to see you here at the CADE and to be connected on Zoom with those folks joining us that way. I've got a couple of things that I kind of spontaneously thought of, some folks I'd like to thank. And the first one is Gordon Hubble back there for your beautiful piano playing. We don't thank you enough for that. We appreciate. Gordon gets here early every Tuesday, gets in there and tunes the piano, gets it perfectly ready to play, and he's got a talent there, and we appreciate you sharing that with us. Jenny, thank you for your staying on us with the back to school. I'm not sure what we're calling the effort this year, but the Undies for Kids event. That's really a great project that we do each year. And as Helen mentioned last week, the school board really appreciates our efforts there. So do consider supporting that. I'd like to just kind of give you guys a quick briefing. I shouldn't call it a report, but as I mentioned about a month ago, the board, your board of directors met yesterday evening. We meet once a month. We met over at Mildred's, or the New Deal Cafe. And I'll tell you, we had a relatively lengthy meeting yesterday evening going over the budget, which was something that was something we were going over that was hours in the making, hours galvanizing this budget, which is really, you know, all of the good that our club does, all of the well-intentioned philanthropic people in here. The budget is where the rubber meets the road. So that's where we're really trying to implement the policies that we talk about and the institutions that we're supporting, et cetera. So I want to really give a big thank you to Jeff Sims for working on that. And Jeff is taking input from a lot of folks with different opinions, including myself. But the board agreed on a well-articulated budget yesterday evening, and in the interest of transparency, it is available to anyone to see on DACDB. And I know everyone is proficient with DACDB, so check it out. I will say that the other part about yesterday evening's meeting that I want to carefully report on is that we have, once again, 5 new club members. That's 2 months in a row with 5 new members. I mean, that's awesome, especially on a club. That's just great. And, you know, Richard Allen is one of the many folks to thank for the recruiting, but he's heading that up, and man, he's just doing a fantastic job. I want to mention these folks. You all may remember Ken Cornell, who spoke to us a couple of weeks ago. Ken is rejoining the club. I'm happy to have him back. Charity Hall. Charity, I saw you. Please stand so we can recognize Charity Hall. Welcome to the club, Charity. We also have Joachim Naoni. That's Kim for short. Kim Naoni. I don't know if he's here or not. Also, Sheed Tarnu. Sheed joined us a couple of weeks ago. He's transferring from the Tallahassee area. He's going to be a great member also. And then finally, Alex Worthington. Is Alex here? Okay. Well, at any rate, I'm excited about this thriving membership that we've got right now, and we want to really keep that going. And one way to keep that going is getting these folks engaged so that they stay as members and that they appreciate everything that this club offers. I think everyone seated in this room kind of gets that piece about our club, that you, pardon the cliche, but you receive from it what you put in. That's so true of this club, more than just about anything in my life. So, you know, something coming down the pike, we're going to be having a committee day, and we're going to be encouraging everyone to maybe increase their engagement a little bit in the club. Not necessarily because we're trying to work you, but we want to share this experience that so much of us just love. So just be looking for that. And I am going to now call up my good friend, Eric Godet, to introduce our speaker. We've got Assistant Chief Lonnie Scott joining us today.
Thank you, Mr. President. Okay, it is my honor to introduce Lonnie Scott. Lonnie Scott is Assistant Chief of Police here at the Gainesville Police Department. Now, Lonnie has had over 36 years of experience in law enforcement. He started as a non-certified police officer with the city of Gainesville back in July 1985 and retired as a captain back in August of 2014. He accepted a position of police major with the Tallahassee Police Department in August of 2014. Now, you know that didn't set well with a lot of us here in Gainesville. So we had to make sure there was a concerted effort, and I give Chief Tony Jones all the credit for making sure that he returned to the Gainesville Police Department as Assistant Chief of Police back in January of 2020. Lonnie has worked in and supervised every compartment of law enforcement agency from patrol administration. He was a member of the first community-oriented police team back in 1987 and assisted with the design and implementation of the department-wide COP philosophy. I guess he could tell us more about that. That was back in 2000. GPD has excelled in the development of community partnerships to assist with the neighborhood problem identification and resolution, and culminated with the improved community relations and crime reduction. I'll tell you something about our police chief and our assistant chiefs and their staff. They got some long resumes. They've accomplished quite a lot. Just to share a little bit about what Assistant Chief Scott has done here in our community and in his career. He has served as a patrol officer, a patrol corporal, a police sergeant, special operations unit supervisor and commander, personal commander, violent task force commander, interim assistant chief of police, internal affairs commander, shift sector commander, district commander, UF football game operations commander. That's the guy you want to know. Administrative services commander, internal affairs, budget, facilities, personnel, training, fleet, records, property and evidence, City of Gainesville emergency manager, new headquarters building project manager, support services police major, and that's the part in Tallahassee. I'm not going to go on too more about that. But, you know, he also has a great background in criminal investigations, traffic, special events, training, records, facilities, fleet, property, and evidence. And he currently serves as Assistant Chief of Police of Operations, Patrol and Criminal Investigations Bureau, and has physical training and units reporting to him. But all that's good, but that's not the part I care about. You see, Lonnie got a Bachelor's of Business Administration and Management in General from the University of Florida and is extremely active. Well, I know he was, and his fraternity, KA Psi, and the Student Government Subcommittee here at Gainesville. So please, let's give a great Rotary welcome to Assistant Chief Lonnie Scott. You are welcome, sir. Absolutely.
I want to thank Rotary International for inviting us today, and also thank my good friend, Mr. Gaudet, for the invitation. It's an honor to be here to speak with you today. Unfortunately, I had a couple of captains that were going to attend. We had a homicide that occurred, and those two captains had to pull off. In fact, it was three captains. But I brought up the B team, so to speak. They were going to be here anyway. They are a little bit younger, a little bit wiser. Does that make it for it? And I'll have them stand up individually, introduce themselves, and let them tell you what they do. At the conclusion of my remarks, I'm going to have both representatives from District 1 come up and give you a brief synopsis of what they're working on, and the same with District 2. So we'll go ahead and start. Any one of you that's brave enough to stand up first?
Good afternoon. I'm the younger, better looking Lonnie Scott. He sometimes gets that laugh, and I'll give you some more. Some mores. Just for all of this, Captain or Chief Inspector Koenig always calls us the 8, so we know who our favorite is. I am the sector commander for Sector 1. I'm responsible for the Midtown, downtown area, specifically Mike, India, and Delta, GDOT, and different organizations that we can kind of work together with to come up with any kind of resolution to any problems that are occurring there. I'm also the midnight shift commander, so I work 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. and Summer is my counterpart, so she works the other rotation. So.
Hello, my name is Lisa Scott. It's my second day back from paternity leave, so I just had my baby boy. I was transferred to this position. I'm the lieutenant for District 2, so I work for Captain Paris Owens. Prior to that, I did accreditation for about 4 years, and as well as logistics. So I'm looking forward to learning this new position and getting to know everyone.
I'm Lieutenant Summer Halleck Kirkhout. I am Lonnie Jr.'s counterpart on midnight shift, so he is Alpha rotation. I am Bravo rotation. I am in District 2, and my sector is Sector 4, which consists of Hotel, Juliet, and November. So kind of northeast 9th Street, all the way east and southeast of the city limits. Prior to this, I was a sergeant with the traffic unit. I've served in CID, working child and sex crimes, special operations. I was PIO for about a year, but then mostly in patrol prior to that and after that.
And my name's Jarrett Weiland. I'm the executive lieutenant. It's a fancy title, but basically I assist the captain for the district, District 1, which is the Midtown area, the southwest part of town. I work for Captain Finelli. Been here 29 years. Worked a lot of jobs as well, K-9, internal affairs, special operations. I've done quite a bit as well. But again, executive lieutenant for District 1.
Brett, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Tried to get out of it. Hi, my name is Brett Trawick. Excuse me, I'm a recently retired Gainesville police officer about a year ago, and I've come back as a civilian capacity as the crime prevention program coordinator. So anything to do with crime prevention through environmental design, I'm the person to talk to about that, as well as business groups. I want to have a business group or organization for your area. That's something you can contact me about. I'll stick around afterwards. I have some business cards, so if you'd like one, I'm glad to give you one, and you can email me or call me.
Thank you. You should have on your table, I think, maps of where the officers, the lieutenants are working. The reason we put this together and pass it out, you'll notice that there's phone numbers there. They show the responsible areas, or the areas that they are responsible for. So each lieutenant, although they work on a particular shift, is responsible for coordinating services in a particular part of town 24 hours a day. So if you have an issue and you have an issue in your area, you find that lieutenant, you have their phone number, you can call them and get them to address any problems that you have in services. If that doesn't work, you have the captains, and then ultimately me and the chief. I'm gonna just go over real quickly what we've been pushing out to the community and trying to make sure that we deliver this message. And I think if you look at the national dynamic, you see that law enforcement is taking a beating. You know, the profession as a whole is suffering. It's hard for us to recruit new police officers. It's hard for us to retain officers that we have. It's like football recruitment, in that people are paying signing bonuses to officers to sign with their agencies. It's very difficult. It doesn't help also when we have, the politicians that delve into it and want to assist in demonizing law enforcement. That doesn't help us at all as far as recruitment goes. But that's a whole different arena. I want to talk to you about something very simple. We are one community. We've been divided too long and are still divided through different fissures, but we are one community. Any problems that we are going to solve, we have to solve them together. If you think people riding around shooting at each other is a law enforcement problem, you are not informed well at all. That is a community problem. It stems from the parenting or lack of. It stems from some things that need to occur in school with better discipline. It stems from social issues that need to be addressed. But it is not a law enforcement problem, because we are not separate from you. I'm a father. I'm a grandfather. I'm a brother. I was a husband. We all wear different hats just like you do. I used to teach at Santa Fe College, and I taught for 9 years. I taught law enforcement out there. And many of my students end up working for us. And one of the things that I used to push was the fact that no matter how much power we have or how much armament we have, if we don't get the support of the community, we cannot be successful. And I tell stories about really where our system of law enforcement started. 1285 Statute of Winchester in England. Every male child, I believe over the age of 14, was required to serve on the watch. And they watched for fires, because a fire back then could take out a whole village, and they watched for marauders. And it was everyone's responsibility. And that watch system really is the infancy, it was in the infancy of what ended up being, quite frankly, law enforcement today. The difference is we law enforcement officers were initially, when it started off, on the poor end, and we took people who could afford it turns at the watch. So it might be your watch and you can afford it. You say, I don't feel like staying up all night. Will you do this for a couple of dollars? Well, we became paid watchers. And even today, you'll see in some of the nomenclature for law enforcement, they talk about the watch. You know, you hear them talk about the watch. That's where all that came from. But there was a responsibility for every citizen to be part of the watch. But now we have a paid group that does it. And it seems like the rest of the community wants to advocate dealing with those problems to those people who are paid for it. We can't solve it. If the US military, the mightiest military on earth, can go over and physically conquer an army, but if they don't win the hearts and minds of the people that are there, it's not a successful venture. Afghanistan, Iraq. We must win the hearts and minds of the people. It's not through guns, it's not through force, quite frankly, it's not even through arrest. It's through us recognizing that it's a benefit to us as a community to make sure that we have a safe environment. Nothing hurts me more than to see young children or older adults who can't help themselves being brutalized. I mean, that happens day in and day out. And the people who are supposed to help stop that, it's not just law enforcement, but all of you. As business owners, you have a vested interest in making sure that people see our community as safe. When they don't see it as being safe, they don't want to come here. They don't want to come patronize your business. They don't want to send their kids to the University of Florida because they don't believe it's safe. Now, I'm originally from Miami, Florida, from Liberty City in Miami, Florida. I could tell you about unsafe, okay? Gainesville is nowhere near that. I moved here to go to UF, and quite frankly, I fell in love with the place and never left. I left for those 5.5 years to go to Tallahassee. I came back home, forgive me. I took all my Gator stuff and had it in the office up there, and they hated it, but that was fine. And long as Florida won, I could do the Gator Chomp through the halls and just tick them all off. But I take pride in the fact that I'm part of this community. And we need you to be successful. You have to communicate with us. Those of you that are managers or owners, you know that if you have employees and you do not tell them what you want done, they're going to do what they think you want done. And that may not always be what you actually want. You have to communicate with them. Well, guess what? We work for you. So if you're not talking to us, like in this arena, and in the crime watches and the business watches, we may not be giving you what you want for service. When you have these situations where people start showing up in mass to protest, typically it's because they weren't educated about what was going to happen and how it's going to happen. My team back there, they'll tell you all I preach to them. Go out and get with the community, get with the business owners, make sure they understand, they help you identify what the problems are, because we see problems from one venue and you see it from another. And then have them help out with identifying how we're going to resolve these problems. I talk about action plan, and they're supposed to share the action plan with the business watches and with the crime watches. And the reason for that is so that you know, you can look at it and you say, that's not our main problem. And I'll tell you a story about Northwest Fifth Avenue many years ago. And I emphasize this with my folks today. When we first went to community policing, Northwest Fifth Avenue, I had a group of officers. We sat down. We talked about what we saw the problems in Fifth Avenue area. And back then it was dope. It was aggravated batteries, and it was burglaries. And aggravated batteries, including people shooting with folks and stabbing folks and the whole deal. An hour after I met with all the officers, I met with the citizens that lived in that area and asked them to identify the problems. In that group, the number one issue that the people that lived in the neighborhood identified wasn't any of the three things that we talked about. Number one was, take a guess, noise. Loud car stereos, driving through the neighborhood early in the morning, waking people up. That was their number one concern. Number two was people running stop signs in their neighborhood. And number three was dope. Those first two were nowhere on our scale. So what did we do? We came up with a game plan. With their help, we came up with a plan in that meeting, and we developed an action plan. And number one, folks, was loud car stereos. And if you've been here long enough, you might remember we were running up and down University Avenue, writing people tickets left and right for the loud car stereos. It was on the news, the whole deal. When we met again with that group, they applauded our efforts. We resolved that issue with loud car stereos. Today, I'm meeting with neighborhoods around the Duck Pond area, 900 East University Avenue. And guess what the number one issue is? Noise, okay? So here it is. That's gotta be 20 plus years later, and that's their number one issue. And so what is my team doing? Coming up with ways to deal with it. The state law changed, and they took away that tool of loud car stereos from us. We're making some modifications. The commission seems amenable to making some modifications to allow us to enforce it again. And when that happens, we will start writing citations and we will deal with that problem again. But that's how you solve a problem. But who brought that problem forth? Our neighbors. Not us, our neighbors. And if we don't do what makes you happy, quite frankly, you need to get rid of us. You need to deal with us. But we should be communicating with you, and you should be able to pick up the telephone no matter who you are. Look at the phone number. If you're not happy with the service you get, call that lieutenant and say, hey, I'm not happy with what happened. Can you explain to me why? And they should be able to explain to you. If we can't explain to you why we do something, we probably don't need to be doing it. Now, our basis right now, everything that we do, we talk about community. But you are the community. You have to participate. Stop looking at us as police officers. Look at us as community members. I base most of my conversations when I'm talking to officers on what's called a Pelian principles. And Pelian principles, Sir Robert Peel, in 1829, you hear the term bobbies. The term bobbies came about from Sir Robert Peel, Robert Bobbies. He, in 1829, was recognized as the father of modern policing because he created a statute that helped establish the Metropolitan Police Department. And he came up with 9 principles. And I won't cover all those 9 principles, but I'll give you 3 core ideas out of those principles. The goal in preventing crime is not catching the criminals, it's preventing crime. If the police stop crime before it happens, we don't have to punish citizens or suppress their rights. An effective police department doesn't have high arrest stats. Its community has low crime rates. 1829, is that applicable today? Yes, it is. That's the way that we're trying to police here. That's not necessarily the number of arrests you make, but what's the crime rate there? The key to preventing crime is earning public support. Every community member must share the responsibility of preventing crime as if they were all volunteer members of the force. They will only accept this responsibility if the community supports and trusts the police. And finally, the police earn public support by respecting community principles. Winning public approval requires hard work to build reputation, enforcing the laws impartially, hiring officers who represent and understand the community, and using force only as a last resort. You would think that was written today, but it was 1829. And so I pushed to the folks that we have working for Gainesville Police Department. This is nothing new. We just have new people trying to apply it. And I emphasize to them, you want a role model for community-oriented policing? Andy Griffith. Perfect role model. Think about it. How many people did Andy shoot? How many physical fights did Andy have? Now, I'm not talking about Barney, all right? I like Barney, but Barney has some issues. But Andy and the way that they policed, I mean, they resolved the public drunkenness by giving the guy the key to the jail to lock himself up. He was secure. Otis, they had Ernest T. Bass, who wanted a uniform, throwing rocks through windows. They gave him Barney's uniform. That's community-oriented policing. You're not trying to necessarily arrest people. You're identifying the problem and coming up with a solution. That's what we need from you. And the best way we could do that is working with you. So I implore you, we need more officers. Help us with the recruitment. Recruit what you want to see wearing this uniform. We need more involvement because, again, this is our community. We need you to be actively involved. I'm not going to ask you to go out there and chase anybody down and tackle them, but at least pick the telephone up and say, hey, here's the guy over here. But get involved. Help us identify the problem so we can work and do what you want us to have done and make sure we do it properly. Now, I don't want to eat up all the time, so I'm going to let my younger, and we're training this younger team up here to replace us. One of them or more will be standing here in the future telling you about how they're policing, and hopefully it mimics what I'm telling you today. But I'm going to ask them to stand up, a representative for District 1 and one for District 2, just to give you a little idea of what they're doing in their area. And we have a lot of challenges. The violent crime, we see it, but we also have to deal with the political reality. If we go out and do some of the things that we can do, we have people before the city commission, and it may not be a really pretty scene. But we can deal with some of these issues. It's just the mechanism that we use may not be well received. But we have to talk with the community and get their buy-in before we take those actions. So with that said, I'm going to ask Summer Kirkhow, Lieutenant Kirkhow, to go ahead and start off.
Thank you. So as I stated earlier, my area is Hotel Juliet November, which if you look at the little maps on there, again, runs from about Northeast 9th Street, southeast, and then out east to the city limits. And one of the things that AC Scott touched on was the noise and around some other issues around 900 East, and that falls in my area of responsibility. So we met with the neighbors and we met with the businesses, and some of the things that we identified as issues were noise, speed, and then the violent crime. So we had to get involved and get the community involved and get the businesses involved because we, like you said, we can't do it by ourselves. I work 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. So the things that I was seeing weren't necessarily affecting everybody else. So I needed my day shift sergeants to identify some problems and talk to the people during day shift and relay that information back to me so we could come up with a comprehensive plan. We got pretty creative. We used our narcotics teams, plainclothes officers, codes enforcement, talked to the businesses about doing trespass authorizations for us so that we could remove some problem people without them having to be there. What else do we use? Codes, city legal. And then we also did a CEPTED study out there too, which is crime prevention through environmental design. And some of those things are so easy to do. For instance, if you paint your pavement shiny black, people think that it's wet and they don't want to stand there. So now we're not congregating. What did you do? You just use some paint, super cheap. It's not very expensive. And you don't have to take a lot of time or money to do that, but it's helped solve an issue of keeping people from congregating. Once we did all that and we asked the community to call us when they see issues coming up, we did I don't want to brag, but we did a really good job. And I just touched base with one of the neighbors and I said, hey, I think that we've made an improvement, but I want to hear from you guys. I want to make sure that you are seeing the improvement too. Because again, what I see on midnight shift may not be what they're seeing during the day. And he wrote me back and he said, absolutely, it's been quiet. I looked at the stats. We haven't had the noise calls. We haven't had the traffic calls. The violent crime has gone down. And some of the businesses who were kind of hesitant to let us do some of the things in the area have actually seen an increase in business. So it's a win-win for everybody. We just have to all put some time in because we can't do it by ourselves. We can't. So we appreciate that. And I looked, I really enjoy getting to know the business areas and the employees and stuff like that. And so my sergeant, so there's a sergeant for each zone as well. And I have some really great sergeants that work for me and I couldn't be happier with my area. I do have the busiest sector in the city and we're addressing some other issues in the other zones, but that's probably our most recent project and kind of success story. Now, it doesn't end there. We're going to have to continue this dialogue, these meetings, checking in, making sure that we don't just say, okay, we're done. You know, we saw the problem and we go on to something else because that's when those problems will creep back in and we'll be right back to doing what we were doing before. So it's just a process. It's an enjoyable one most of the time. Sometimes it gets a little, you know, stressful or whatever, but I really do appreciate and see the value in the philosophy that Chief Jones and command staff and the assistant chiefs all push down to us. And we carry on that. And I've seen it work. So it's just going to take some time. So.
Thank you. Okay. Who's handling the next district, Junior? I have to remind him to be brief. He's a little longer winded than his dad.
When my dad used to speak, my mom used to stand in the back of the room and go, wrap it up. Right? So I'll try to be pretty brief. A lot of the issues that I deal with are more so in the downtown, midtown area. A lot of our issues consist of quality of life, noise. 20 years later, I've heard that story 100 times, 101 today. But it's true. Every time that we've tried to address a problem in the community and we think that we know what the problem is, turns out we're wrong. Downtown has been a pretty big issue since I got back. I just got back. My wife just mentioned us coming back from parental leave. So we just had a baby boy. And getting back into it has been the toughest part because when I left, you know, we had the issue of downtown noise, drinking, and shootings, and I get back and it's still persisting. I think one of the things that we are able to address is the open container. As not only as a lieutenant, but also as the PVHF for our department, I have the opportunity to speak with the commission and kind of voice our concerns. One of the biggest concerns that we had was the open container. Open container being downtown, 2 a.m. Everybody in the duck pond can tell you they can hear it. There's cars driving up and down on University Avenue. And when I tell you cars, I mean hundreds of cars, people hanging out of cars, people drinking. And the one thing that we thought was going to solve the problem is putting officers there. It doesn't. So a lot of it comes with policy, contacting our commissioners and voicing our opinions on this. I think that that's helped a lot, which is how they've come to the conclusion that they were going to attempt to put a limit on the open container of 2 a.m., right? If you can't serve it after 2 a.m., between 2 and 7, then why have open container then? When I explained to you there are parties that go on downtown, there are hundreds, if not thousands of people hanging out in the parking garages, hanging out in the parking lots, drinking, blaring music, and our officers are doing our best to kind of mitigate those issues. A lot of the plans that we've come up with today are addressing them one by one. So, one instance where there were a bunch of cars, Sergeant Ed Wilkins used an action plan. Basically, our action plan is to meet with the community, come up with a plan and empower them and have them a part of the process. Trying to get fencing, trying to get lighting, better lighting, trying to utilize our officers so we can kind of deter that behavior in that area because people are sleeping. Fletcher's was a big issue at one point in time. There were people moving or leaving that area for the weekend just because they didn't want to deal with all that carried on. It became one of the biggest projects that we had in working with Mr. Green, get fencing and signage and blockage of roadways, to kind of deter that behavior so the people that are living there can sleep at night and they don't have to worry about being woken up to loud music or gunshots, things of that sort. A lot of the issues that I can deal with are with the business owners in the downtown area, the club owners. We had a meeting yesterday and we did responsible vendor training. So basically it explains to the owners of the nightclub our expectations, but it also allows them to establish their expectations of us. So the laws that they are currently enforcing when it comes to alcohol enforcement, a lot of the issues that they may have downtown, identifying underage drinkers. What is your action plan for that? One of the owners is wanting like a active shooter training. These are things that we are working with them to kind of accomplish so we can help them make as much money and do it safely. And that's our job. So a lot of the issues that we are dealing with now in reference to noise, violence downtown, we're addressing it with various action plans, details. We've done details where they've gotten multiple guns. I used to be the sergeant of the Violent Crime Task Force when we had one. And it was just a small, short period of time that we did details in the downtown area. And we got 13 guns. There was one fellow riding in the back of a car with an AR-15 and he's gripping it and they're just driving into the downtown area. I mean, these are things that are happening. We stop people and they toss guns out of the car. All scary things going on downtown at night. And I don't think people really realize how dangerous it had gotten at that point. The details we have been doing have been showing some kind of impact. I don't think it's more so deterrence. We contact Wells Fargo to kind of discourage them from having people park up on the second floor, carry on with the drinking and partying per se. But it's something we're making headway on. And I think that our ultimate goal is to help achieve that goal with policy. So that is what we've been working on for Sector 1, which is my sector, Mike, India, Delta, the Midtown, downtown. It says Midtown, Midway, downtown area. So I'll pass it over to Barney Fife.
So to wrap this up, I think the biggest thing I want to emphasize to you is that one community. We need you. None of you've had to go knock on the door. I take that back. A couple other people may have, and I see Bugles as well. Knock on the door and tell a parent that their kid is not coming home. You talk about the difficult thing to do. You never forget the wail that they let out. And then you empathize with them and you think, how would you feel? And it just takes one. And then you understand why we are standing here trying to make sure we get all of you involved. One community to protect our children and protect those that can't protect themselves. So please be part of the team. And we, the crime watchers and the business watchers, I know we have different arenas with that, but I encourage you to participate in the business watch because they typically provide information, come up with solutions like a group trespass for certain areas. So please participate in that. And I thank you for your time and thank you for inviting us and we appreciate it. Thank you very much. I forgot to ask if anyone had any questions that they would like to have us answer. Yes, sir.
Had a robbery. Hadn't ever had a robbery in 26 and a half years. And I think that's due mainly to the Gainesville Police Department. We have a car wash and we wash squad cars, by the way, for you guys. If you're out in that neighborhood and you come by in your squad car, you get a free car wash. So we're happy to see the police in. Different subject completely. Statistics show that 2 police officers are killed in the line of duty every week in the United States. I heard you talking about the demonization of police, and I think that's going on, especially in our media, that police are being demonized. Last year in 2020, it was averaging more like 1 police officer per week. This year it's 2. So we will double by the end of December the number of police officers killed in action. I would just make a suggestion. I think that these gentlemen, and you can find them on the internet, it's mainly men, but I mean, it's men and women, but I think someone with the community liaison office might get in touch with the Gainesville Sun in the obituaries department, because I'm of the age where I read the obits. I think a lot of us do. But I think every police officer who's killed in the line of duty in the United States should be in the Gainesville Sun obits, and that people should recognize that these people are giving their lives to keep us protected. So I would just make that suggestion to you.
I appreciate that. And I would say that it's unfortunate that in today's time that it seems that law enforcement has a target on their back, literally, you know, and every time we walk out with a uniform and even in plain clothes, if they see the badge, you take a chance. You know, people, we represent the government, so to speak, in some folks' eyes, and we really represent the community. And unfortunately, they sometimes take it out on us. And again, there's nothing sadder than to see some 29, 30-year-old kid with children killed because they were police officers trying to do something to protect our community. And no, they aren't paid. They dismiss that. I think we're one of the few professions that someone can commit an act that's unwise 3,000 miles away, and it reflects on the local police department when we had nothing to do with it. Where other professions and politicians, they do things and it's not a group, it's not a stereotype thing, it's not a group thing, it's just that individual. But enough of that. Yes,
Well,
sir.
Thank you so much for the great presentation. And mine is going to be quick, where as an African-American, I have 3 boys. And you yourself, you probably know this, and there's within the community, there's different perception about police.
Yes.
And now add on top the terrible incident of George Floyd,
yes,
which I can see make other police officers being vulnerable,
yes,
but also doesn't reflect the way the police professional ought to be. And you talk about one community. How do you deal with teasing out the bad perception about the police, and then also project that amazing one community idea? Because the media, we can all lie to ourselves that we don't need the police, but the reality is crime going to happen where you need the police. So how do you have the balance of what happening politically with that is diluted into one community, and the reality of how the African American feel, and also you as a community of one police? I see different police, black and white and all that. You don't discriminate, but somehow the shooting of unmanned, particular the unarmed men, on average, I'm talking statistically, is being captured. You see Floyd and others, which is also unacceptable. So how do you balance both? I don't know if my question is clear, sir.
Okay. You know, let me say, and this is a touchy subject with folks, and some folks don't like talking about it, but I do. You know, George Floyd, anybody that saw that, any police officer that I know that saw what happened to George Floyd is going to tell you that was wrong. There's no debate on that. That was wrong. The issue is that we treat people like we want to be treated. And I've said this to my folks in meetings, because I speak to all my operations folks. GPD is like a family. You know, I try to get that thought process in, that it's like a family. You know, in your family, there's some folks you like and some folks you don't like. You know, that Uncle Buck you don't want to see come up. But we deal with one another and remember that we're family. But I also ask my officers that before they take enforcement action, particularly use of force, or we call it response to resistance, think about how you would apply that to a person that was in your family. So if we're going to have to fight someone, at what point do you stop trying to strike them and really de-escalate? And you should do that all the time and use the minimal force necessary to get compliance. But treat it, if they just hesitate for just a minute, say, if this was my brother, how would I do it? I've been successful. And what folks don't understand, remember I told you about the difficulty recruiting people. We hire, and not just here, it would happen in Tallahassee as well. We hire, I would say probably half the people at least, if not more, that have never had a fight. We hire police officers that have never had a fight. Now, those of you that are my age and around that way, it looks like a good share of number of people who are close to me. We grew up fighting. You'd have had a fight. I had one guy in the class, when I asked the question, he said, does the fight with my sister count? But you had a class, and over half the class had not had a physical fight. But then we take them, give them a gun, and we place them in environments where they're going to fight. So we have to give them superior training. If you look at a lot of what happens on a national scale, when you look at the reason for the failure, typically it's training. It's a lack of training. Now, yes, every profession has some bad actors. I'm proud to say when GPD identifies bad actors, they are no longer GPD police officers. That guy sitting over there, Lieutenant Wilder, was our internal affairs inspector, and he did a good job of making sure that when they did something wrong, we held them accountable. Chief Inspector Koenig now is in charge of, that's one area that reports to her. We take pride in the fact that if you're wrong, you're gone. You know, we believe in second chances to a certain extent, but we won't retain you and we won't hire you if you come from another agency and you have a history of not respecting our citizens, our neighbors. And I said this to the commission in the last meeting I attended. We focus on the behavior, not necessarily the people that are committing the act. We're looking at the behavior. If you're out there shooting at people, that's a behavior we need to address. If you're out there fighting, causing disturbances, that's what we address. We're not looking necessarily at the race, gender, gender identity, and any of that stuff. We're looking at the behavior. And as long as we get our officers to think like that, and it's harder for you to do something when the people in the community know you and you know them. when you make it personal. It's more difficult to do things that are improper to people that know one another. But if you see me as one of them, and I see you as one of those, it's easier for us to have that conflict. But when we are one community, we know that when we do something improper, it's not just against another person, it's against our community. And that's how we deal with that subject. I hope I answered your question for you. Thank you.
Assistant Captain Scott, thank you so much for your time today. And what a heartfelt talk that was. That was so real. Thank you for that. And thank you for introducing the A-team, also your son, Lieutenant Scott, and Lieutenant Kirkow, who I got to speak briefly with Lieutenant Kirkow before the meeting. And she did tell me that, I was just kind of asking a little bit about her district, her zone, and how she worked as a professional. And she said she was doing pretty well this morning, but she'll be probably getting a nap later because she had just come off her 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. Isn't that? Yep, shift. But in addition, we learned that she's also essentially on call 24 hours as the lieutenant assigned to that zone. So, I just, I don't get to interact enough with law enforcement, but, this is a noble profession, and we just appreciate what you guys do to protect and serve us as citizens of Gainesville. So thank you. I've got a little something physical to give you to hopefully that you'll remember this talk. It's got our motto on the front, okay, our Rotary motto, and on the back, it's got the four-way test. Four-way test is something that we run by everything we think, say, or do. First, we ask, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And I can feel that you're the type of man that's the kind of stuff you do. So thank you again, Assistant Captain Scott. And I'm going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Thanks everybody for being here.